All right, welcome everyone. It's Chris Petri, and thanks so much for coming by. We are going to have a great time. We're going to actually go over some palette considerations. These might help. When we're painting in watercolor, we always know that we're trying to look for every advantage we can. Watercolor is not an easy medium, and all of you that are working along with me on a weekly basis and stopping in here once in a while, or if you're working all the time every week with us, you know it's not an easy medium, and maybe you're a couple years in and you're already starting to get some really good progress, some good traction with watercolor. You still know there's always things to learn, and I'm even learning things all the time myself too, so I consider myself a student like all of you are. We're all students of the watercolor medium, so I just want to share this video on palettes, hoping that it's going to kind of be a help for all of us. I don't use my different palettes that I might have that I've collected over many years now, for 15 or 20 years. I don't use them enough. I should actually start using some of my other palettes that I have. But I think this video will kind of just cover how we can use different palettes, perhaps for different style paintings, large paintings, small paintings, medium-sized paintings, as well as what type of paintings it's going to be, what kind of method are we going to use, what kind of technique. We're using the alla prima technique or method, or are we going to use the glazing technique? So we can use different palettes for all different kinds of scenarios. Let's kind of look at different things. Let's just have an informal, little fun time here. Let's talk about some palettes. I'll show you some of the ones I have at my studio, ones that I use. You pretty much know the ones I use on a regular basis. The ones I use for my videos are the ones that I use every day when I'm painting too in my studio for gallery showings or paintings for sale, anything like that, or just for my YouTube videos. So let's get right into it. Be right back and we'll get started. Okay, so let's get back into it here. Let's start kind of going over a few different palettes that we have here and the considerations that we have for what we're going to use. This one here, you'll notice this is my constant palette I use all the time on YouTube. We also have a palette here, the Prang Oval 16. I use this on a continuous basis as well here. So these are the two main palettes I use. The Schmincke palette, which I did some customizing on my pans in there, but I used the Squeeze 2 paint in this palette. And again, I did customize the pans a little bit just so I could get a few more colors in there. But I have a video on this, so if you always want to peruse around through my channel, you can always just type in Chris Petri and then Schmincke palette. I think I have a video called Schmincke palette, or I have numerous palette videos, so you could look. I have like maybe a dozen or more over the years now, so I'm always kind of doing some palette videos every once in a while, just updating them because I sometimes add new palettes into my regime here. Regiment. So now this one here, again, we use all the time. This is the Prang Oval 16 set. What you'll notice about both of these palettes, you might notice there's not a lot of large mixing areas for these palettes here. And the reason I mention this is because I've been getting some questions lately on in the comments section, and thank you so much. Leave your comments in the comments section. Don't be worried. Leave your comments in the comments section. I read them all. Okay, so I do read all the comments in the comment section, and I have noticed there's been a lot of people that comment and say, oh, I'm doing okay, but I'm having a little bit of a problem mixing the colors. The colors aren't as like vibrant or exciting as your colors maybe, or something like that. You know, some comments about having some challenges with mixing colors, and I can understand that totally. So the thing is, when I make videos on YouTube, I only have this small area right here with my video camera. This is my video camera zoomed all the way out as far as it goes back. So I can't show you a large area. I only have so much area I can work in. So that's being the case, I have to use somewhat of a small palette to get my palette in and then get my painting in there too. And then maybe sometimes we put in the phone with a picture on it or a photograph sometimes. So you kind of know our format here on my channel. And if you're new here, welcome. Thanks for coming by. I always want to mention, if you're brand new here, you might be kind of catching up a little bit, but I'm just talking about normal everyday goings on here on my channel. We're just talking about palettes that we use and so forth, and how we use them, and what are the different palettes we can use. And I'm just explaining how when I do my YouTube videos, I can't really use large palettes because I'm trying to get my palette in the picture frame here, and then my painting in there, and then even maybe sometimes my phone with a photograph on there. And this is all I have. This is the only room I have to use. I can't zoom back any further, else you wouldn't be able to see anything. It would be too small. Everything would be tiny. So I'm only having limited space. But you at home, you're the artist, you're at home, you have lots of room, you can use larger palettes. And so we're going to go through some different palettes you can use that are going to be a little larger, and that gives you the advantage because you can also, I think a great way to go about it is if you pre-mix your colors before you start your painting and you get them all out in your palette first, the colors that you're going to use for the painting, and then the right consistency of the colors and the washes. So I'll kind of explain as we go. But let's just say here, if we're doing a smaller painting, maybe like a 5x7 painting, this is a fine palette to use. You can still mix a lot of colors in here on this palette, have them all mixed, and then you can go in and do a 5x7 painting, which is about the same size as this palette here. But if you wanted to do like an 18x24 painting, which is basically the whole size of this picture frame that we're using right here on the video, then you might have an issue because you're going to need some more space. So this is where we start moving into the different palettes we might be able to use. So if you're using using the Extreme Beginners palette, this is pretty good, but you might need some more room if you're going to use a larger painting, or if you're going to paint a larger painting. So this is where, let's shift a little bit here. Let's take these out of the picture, and let's start looking at these few things here. This would be good if you're doing a small painting, like a 5x7 or something. You could mix quite a few different washes in this palette. It's kind of a fun palette, but again, this is if you're just doing something really simplistic where you're not using too many washes and you might just be using a few colors. You can use something like this. This here is a little bit larger, kind of the same idea. You have you might use your main color here that you're going to use for your painting, and then you put in your other washes around that. You might have a little more flexibility if you have a nice ceramic dish like this. These are both ceramic. I like either ceramic or metal. I'm not really a big fan of plastic, but I do use plastic palettes sometimes. Don't get me wrong. There are some great plastic palettes out there that I use, and I've used over the years. But this here, again, ceramic, both kind of nice. So you have a lot of options. Let me see. Let me just take a quick run over to the other side of the studio quick. Give me 1 second. This is really nice. Look at this. This is like a vegetable tray. I got this at like a red, white, and blue store for like $5 or $10, and it's ceramic. So it's beautiful. It's ceramic, and you can put in all your different washes in here, and you have lots of. This is for like a large painting. So if you're painting a large 18x24 or even a 24x30 painting, 24 inches by 30 inches, really large sheet of watercolor paper. I think that's one of the largest sheets you can buy to do a really super large painting. You're going to need big brushes too. So, if you're doing a painting like that, you're going to be breaking out some big brushes too. You're going to be using like big wash, mop brushes. These are my Alvaro Castanet brushes here. I got quite a few of his mop brushes. He has great mop brushes that he sells on his website. And then a couple other flat brushes like this. And of course I have, a filbert brush, a large, filbert brush. So I have lots of, over the years, over 20 years of painting, every time I give everyone my Christmas list, my wish list for Christmas, my Santa list. And then, I always ask for gift cards from Blix online, or I have a Blix store right down the street from me, so I go there. And so I'm always getting toys, for my painting, at Christmas time or birthdays and things like that. I always ask for art materials and art supplies. That's what my main thing is. I'm always trying to get some more. So, but again, this is great. I get, again, a 5 and dime. You can find these vegetable trays where you put like a ranch dressing in here, and, your carrots, celery, cauliflower, mushrooms, whatever you have. And you can get this type of tray for $5 or $10 at a 5 and dime store or one of those discount stores, and you'd be surprised. These are great for watercolor, So I use this often when I do large paintings. And let's look at something else. This is my. This is a great palette too. You might know this one, the John Pike palette. Many of you might have this palette, but I'm just showing you what I've accumulated over 20 years of painting, and this one's a great palette too. And this one is for large paintings, and this has the most working area that you could ever want for a palette. So you have the lid right here. See this lid? You have this working area. You can mix a huge amount of washes on this, and then you have this whole area too. So you have like 2 areas like this. I guess I would use it something like this. I would use it like this, the John Pike palette, like that. So this in itself right here is a really large, if you use this palette with a large painting, you'll have plenty of room, but you can even extend it even more if you want to mix all your washes ahead of time before you even start your painting. That's another advantage, and that's why I'm kind of mentioning this, because some of you want to get your washes down perfect and really looking good, and the perfect way to do that is just you get the largest palette you can get that you feel comfortable with, that will fit in your studio and where you're working, your kitchen table, if you're working on your office desk, whatever it is. But this one here, the John Pike palette, has this plus the tray on top. So you have actually 2 huge trays. These are like 10 by 15, something like that, or 10 by 14. So the John Pike palette is great. And I know one of my favorite artists, Mel Stabin, uses this palette, so that's where I kind of got the idea to use this palette, and I purchased it many years ago. And so that's an excellent palette too if you want to mix up your washes ahead of time. And then this one here, of course, this is my this is a palette that I use often. This one I think this one was similar to the Charles Reed palette that I started with many years ago, 10, 12, 15 years ago, even 20 years ago. I use this. It's called an Anderson palette. It's aluminum, and again, I like metal and ceramic. So either metal or ceramic is my favorite. But I do use, again, the plastic. When you just saw the plastic John Pike palette that Mel Stabin uses, that one definitely. I use that occasionally as well. That's got a lot of working area for that. But this one too has a lot of areas you can mix up. A lot of washes ahead of time. So I guess what I'm thinking is, like, maybe in a few seconds we're going to use some of these palettes. And what we'll do is we'll actually mix up some washes on the palette. And I'll give you the actual kind of shortcut if you really want to get ahead of things. When you're doing your watercolor, you get your drawing done, then you get your paints all out on your palette, and then when you're ready to paint, everything is there, it's ready to go, and then you can just go in and you can just start putting in all your washes, and you have everything all mixed ahead of time. So we're going to do that right now in about just a second or two. So we're going to take another break. I will probably use this palette right here to do the exercise or the example that we're going to do. So I'm going to spin it this way, maybe like this. This might be a good way to spin the palette. I think I could fit that in. Yeah, that should be good. All right, so we'll do it this way. And then what I'll do is I'll just do a quick bit of tape. So I'm just going to tape down the palette at the top and the bottom. I tape things down. If you ever decide you're going to do some videos yourself on YouTube, it's always good to tape things down when you're doing a video so that they don't move around and slide around. That tends to be very distracting. So I try to always make sure everything is really locked down on my table so that it's not really sliding around or moving around. All right, so now we have this palette that, again, I really think this palette is one of the best ones I've ever used. The Anderson palette, aluminum. It's got, it has the thumb hole here, so you can hold it in your lap when you're working with it. So you can hold it right in your lap and have the palette on your arm with the thumb hole. You can have the palette right there on your arm like this. So if you can imagine my hand was underneath it, you have your whole palette right on your lap, and then you can work on your painting, and you can work on an easel if you want, or you can even work on a table, or you can set it down on your table just like this. But the options are, you have all the options you want for how you're going to use it. But this is, again, a really excellent palette, and we'll just use this one as our example. We'll use the other ones too. We'll go through like each one as we've reviewed each of these palettes. We're going to try each one and kind of give an example of like maybe how we can use it to just make life a little bit easier when we're doing our paintings. All right, so we'll be right back. I'll get a sheet of watercolor paper right here. We'll set one down like this, like that. We'll set down a piece of paper, and we'll do a little bit of painting. Okay, so we'll be right back. All right, so we're getting started again, and I just wanted to look up the correct spelling of this palette, so I'm going onto my Google here. Let's see. Let's do Google Ander. And I'm just trying to look up the correct spelling on this, because I know if I mention this to everyone, I want you to be able to look it up and be able to find it easily. Okay, so that is the correct spelling. So let's zoom in here just for a second. So we'll do our, this is our Anderson palette. And it's aluminum. And I'll just get some water, some fresh, clean water. In my water container, I use Holbein water, collapsible water containers. They seem to work really fantastic. They're they look like those lights we used to see when we were like young kids. They used to have them at the parties, hanging up, and they were like colored. This kind of looks like that. Collapsible water containers, Holbein. These are fantastic. I use them all the time. And then let's see now. The thing I was mentioning before was, with a palette like this, you can really kind of mix everything that you would need for your painting beforehand, so that before you start painting, you can mix everything out here. So let's just take an idea of how that might work. So let's say we're going to use some French ultramarine blue for like the sky wash. And we're going to say, well, for the sky wash, we're going to use lots of water. So we're going to put lots of water there up top here. So that might be our, and we could use a larger brush. I'm using a few different brushes we have here. I'll use a number 12 travel brush. So maybe we'll have some sky wash with French ultramarine blue. Start off with that. Then we might work into some gold color. Maybe that's yellow ochre. Kind of a loose gold color there. A loose wash. Lots of water. Lots of blue up there. And then maybe some red. Some alizarin crimson. And we'll use some alizarin crimson like that. So maybe over here you're going to mix up your really light washes with lots of water. And then let's say for your medium tonal values, your medium tones, then you're going to maybe mix over here, maybe some more paint, less water. So that's how that would look. You know, you have more, still, you have some decent amount of water in there, but not like this. This is really puddly. You can see that's really like a light wash. This is what your medium tonal value might look like. And then you just go in and do the same thing. You say, I'm gonna use the same colors. And then now you'll grab some more. But you're gonna make it a thicker paint. Less water, thicker paint here. And then alizarin crimson here. And You kind of can see how that's a thicker consistency, less water, more paint. And then you might say, oh, okay, now I'm going to do some details toward the end of the painting. And that's when you would pick up really thick paint straight right out of the tube. And you might mix that, like maybe up here you could do it. And you can see how thick that is. Almost zero water, just a damp brush. So if you're using just a damp brush, you can see how thick that is. And that would be your darkest, thickest final, if you're using the glazing technique and you're using really light washes to start with. And then you're going to mix your medium tonal values here, where you're using, you know, a decent amount of water, but you have a lot of paint in there too. And then here at the end, if we're doing some darker darks in the glazing technique, let's say, and we're doing our final wash, our final finishing touches to the painting, well, then we're just going with straight paint. We're not even using any water. We're just using a damp brush, basically grabbing straight tube paint right out of here and doing that. So now you can see that you can take the colors that you might want to use in your painting and kind of lay it out in this fashion where you have your really, really light washes with lots of water in one section. Then maybe your middle tones in another section here where you have a little more paint, a little bit less water. And then here, as you're finishing up, you're going to have your darker washes or your stronger pigment, almost zero water, just enough water to get the paint to get out here onto the palette. So basically you can just use straight tube paint over in this section here, and then you have it. You have all of your, and then you can just translate that right into like your first washes, your light washes up here. That's going to be your light washes like that. And then when you start working into your middle tones, on top of this, once this dries 100% for your pretty much your glazing technique type of painting, you dry off your brush, and then when you start going into these, you can kind of see how you're getting a little bit of that darker wash there. And you sometimes have to add some paint in there as you go. So you can keep, you can keep adding into your palette, but if you get all the colors that you need on the palette first, then you can just replenish your areas here that you have with more paint. But you can kind of see the paint out on the palette, and you kind of know which color you're going to use for the most part. And then that was some blue, then maybe some, you can see how that's a little bit darker, middle tones like that. And then our red, our middle tones there, quite a bit darker than up here, or stronger pigment, stronger intensity of color, darker tonal value. And then of course when we're done with that, and then we're going to start doing our finished, most exciting colors of the painting that are the darkest dark tonal values, then you can see how you have so you have everything mixed up out on your palette, and you can get all of your like that, and like so. Alizarin crimson. And then you can kind of see how you have that whole range of tonal values where you're going light to dark. Lightest washes first, let that dry 100% on your painting. Then you're getting into your middle tonal values. You get that onto the paper. Once this is dry, the first wash. So you could even just, if we can, just kind of put it down like this is the first wash, second wash, and third. And that's kind of the progression of the painting as it goes. And sometimes when you work with different style, like if you do the alla prima method, you might start down here and do some darks first and do it in reverse and say, okay, I'm not going to really do the glazing technique. I'm going to do the alla prima method. And then you'll start out with some of your darks in your painting. Find out where your darks are in your painting first. Get some of those in, started there. Then you might work into some of the lights and the middle tones as you see things working out as you go. And it's a fun thing. And you keep flexible. you keep yourself, on your toes. You just try to use different methods, use the glazing technique, try the alla prima technique. I kind of show both of those techniques all the time on my channel. So if you're new here and you're really having a fun time, I'm hoping you'll just continue to watch along, and you can even go back into some of my other videos, earlier videos that I have. I have actually hundreds and hundreds of videos on my channel. You can go back and really just watch as much as you want. You can binge watch my videos. Watching videos is a great way to learn. You get all the information coming in. So if you're not necessarily painting or along with a video, but if you're watching, you're learning all of the vocabulary of watercolor, all the colors. You're learning the names of the colors, the techniques you're going to be using, the sizes of the brushes, the palettes. You learn so much information just by watching. So I'm big firm believer in, if you watch a lot of videos, you'll learn a lot of information. That's how I learned a lot in watercolor, was by watching a lot of videos, a lot of hours of watching videos, for sure, on YouTube. And I had some, I have some DVDs as well, a collection of DVDs, watercolor DVDs. So, all right, I'm excited here, right? We're learning a lot of good information. We're going to continue on. We're going to bring back some of those other palettes we were looking at before, just so we can kind of see how they work and function with our watercolors. I hope you're not getting too impatient. You might want to start working on one of your watercolors right now. Go for it. Go ahead and do it. Come back and keep watching at another time then. If you're going to go do a painting, I can't blame you. It's exciting. Watercolor is a great medium. Let's have fun doing it. And again, I always mention too, if you like my videos a lot, please subscribe. Right on the right hand side below, there's that subscribe button. All that does is just, next time you open up YouTube and you click on YouTube, you'll just see that I've created a new video, and YouTube will alert you that I've made a new video, and they'll continue to alert you when I've created new videos going into the future, so you won't lose track of what we're doing here. And that's all the subscribe button really is. You won't be getting any silly emails or text messages or phone calls or anything like that. It doesn't work that way at all. It's just basically when you click that button, YouTube will make sure you're kind of seeing my videos coming into your YouTube channel, so that you know when I've created new videos, so you can join along and paint along with us, draw and paint in watercolor. And I'm also hoping too, if you think this is a valuable video and you're learning a lot, please hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up is a great way to let me know if you like this video. I'll do more like this, on an ongoing basis. But in any case, let's take a quick break. We'll come right back. Maybe we'll start with another palette or two, and kind of just go over the same kind of idea of how we're going to use the palette and how it translates over into our painting. Okay, so we'll be right back in just a second. All right, we're back and we're excited. Let's, I usually like to also make this a productive time here when I can so now usually when I'm working with watercolors, I like to keep the palette clean, wash off the paints. While I'm doing a painting, sometimes I might wash the palette 2 or 3 times, or clean off the palette 2 or 3 times, just so that if the colors get a little bit mixed up. And I'm using a simple color scheme here. You can kind of see that we're just using like the primary colors. But once you start getting into a lot of different mixes of colors with greens and the earth colors and things like that, you'll notice that your colors could get a little bit muddy. So don't be afraid when you're doing your painting and you're maybe halfway through your painting and you look and you say, oh, wow, I better clean up the palette a little bit and start mixing my paints again. So then you just do the same process over again. You just take a spritzer bottle like this. Usually there's enough water on the palette from the washes, but sometimes not. So you just go through your palette, spritz a little bit of water on there, grab some paper towels. So usually I grab a couple paper towels, and I just go right in quickly. And that's why I like the metal or the ceramic. They clean up real easy, and there's no staining on the surface. So I always have a clean, white, perfectly white, pristine working surface. Nothing affecting the paint colors when I'm mixing the colors on the palette. And again, you're the artist. You'll decide what kind of palette you like to use. You might like to stick with 1 or 2 if you like. Maybe a large one and a small one. For larger paintings, you use one. For the smaller paintings, you might use another. It's all up to you. All right, so that's that palette there, and we'll just maybe we'll work this here. We'll sort of set that aside. Okay, then we'll remove this here. So you have to remove the tape here. Again, I like to tape down everything so that it doesn't slide around. If you're going to make your own videos eventually on YouTube, you're going to definitely want to keep that in mind. Keep your stuff taped down when you're working. This way it doesn't slide around and cause distractions. And so there we go. We have this palette. Let's move this one to the side. Let's try this John Pike palette. There we go. Okay, so we can kind of see this is really good. We can tape this one down as well. And again, this one takes up mostly all of my video picture space that I have on my table here, so I really can't use much paper. All right, so I tape it down so it doesn't move around too much, and maybe I'll put a small bit of paper over here. So we'll just use a small bit of paper over here on the right-hand side. But this, again, is another palette you can utilize, especially if you think you're going to be painting some larger paintings. This might really be a good fit for your larger style paintings if you want. So I don't know. Let's take a look over here. Okay, let's use a square brush. All right, so I'm gonna empty out my water bucket, put some fresh clean water in there. Again, I use the Holbein collapsible water containers. They make a large one too. I use that sometimes if I'm using larger paintings. I'll use the large container. I think Holbein makes it too. It's got a yellow handle on it, I think, a yellow plastic handle. But in any case, all right, so now we're looking at the John Pike palette. And again, you can really mix up some really beautiful large washes of color. Some blues. So you can see how you can get some really beautiful large washes right away. And this is like a palette, again, has tons of room for mixing, so you can just pick out all your colors you're going to use for your painting. And then you just get all the colors out onto the palette. Maybe get some burnt sienna too as well, like that. And then we can just maybe do a little bit of experimentation here and just get some of the colors on here. And this might be like where you're doing some really beautiful landscapes and you want lots of light washes to start with. And then down here you're going to have your greens. Maybe you're going to do some earth tones and some greens here. Like that. And then maybe you can use some orange. So you can kind of work around your mixes. So you can have a lot of fun with this, and you can see you have tons of room to mix. You can make really beautiful, large, beautiful, juicy washes on your paper. You can just imagine you could have a really, like, again, a 24 by 30 sheet of watercolor paper and a larger brush than this. This is, only a 1-inch brush approximately. Somewhere I have I don't see it right now. I have something, probably one of my bins in my studio. I have like a larger, like 2-inch brush like this, so it's like double the size of this one. So you can imagine if you have a flat brush like this, double this size, you can really work on a large sheet, like a, you know, a 24 by 30 inch watercolor sheet of paper, and really get some fantastic, large, beautiful paintings. And you can do landscapes, seascapes, city scenes, street scenes. You know, you can do still life paintings, whatever you like. But that's kind of like, you know, you can get tons of beautiful colors onto your paper, have a fun time with it, experiment. And all right, so now you kind of see how this larger palette works, the Pike palette. Again, great palette. And we'll keep going here. We're going to try another 1 or 2 palettes, I think, and then we'll be kind of set. We'll kind of have seen all of the different palettes really that I use for the most part. And then again, you can experiment, and there's a lot of other palettes out there you can try out or research about. You know, there's videos, probably tons of videos out there on palettes. I have at least 10 videos on paints and palettes, or 20 videos, you know, over the last 10 years on YouTube. So you probably can look up some of my palette videos. You just type in Chris Petri palette or Chris Petri paints, and things like that. You'll find tons of videos I have already. And okay, let's take a break. We'll come right back. We'll just clean up the palette, and we'll start a bit of research on another couple styles of palettes. Okay, so let's transition over to the next palette. Let's first kind of do our process here. We'll just take a little bit of spritzer bottle here, Holbein spritzer bottle. A couple bits of watercolor, paper towel. And that's it. We just kind of clean up our palette. So before I start another palette, I just want to keep this one clean, get this one wrapped up okay. So I just go right around. All right, perfect. Okay, so we'll just remove our painting here. We're going to slide this over, let this dry over here. And we'll lift this up. Okay, there we go. All right, let's find another couple palettes here. Again, this one's a really nice one. Again, this is the vegetable and dip tray that I found at the Five and Dime for like $5. Works perfect. You could even clean this up and then use it for a dip tray, and then when you want to paint, you can paint. I don't know if that's a great idea. I wouldn't do that. I don't suggest that. Okay, so let's see how this might work. All right, let's take our Extreme Beginners palette, and I'll put some fresh, clean water in my water bucket. And then what I'll do is I'll spritz this up a little bit. So what I'm doing is I'm just getting lots of fresh, clean water on the palette. I'll clean this section up over here. And again, the idea is nice, fresh, clean water. And I'll just make sure so I'll just clean this side up over here. Just because we're working with the palette, let's get it cleaned up a little bit. And then, since we have this tray here, let's work some of these colors in there. So I'm going to go back to my number 12 travel brush with fresh, clean water. Let's use blue. So I'm going to use it's like a cerulean blue in my Prang Oval 16 set, the beginner set. So I consider this like a cerulean blue, the color. And this is like what I would consider a French ultramarine blue. So I try to give the names of these colors, the main colors that I use with my tube paint that I use on an ongoing basis all of the time. So that is a great start here. Then let's go with maybe some really beautiful Viridian green, I would call that, a Viridian green. So you can actually take your Prang Oval 16 set, grab a nice vegetable tray like this, a serving tray, ceramic, and then load it up with paint. And then I'm going to go with the blue, green, purple up here. I think I'm going to use some purple up here. Purple's a wonderful, exciting color. Violet. I use ultramarine violet, Winsor Newton tube paint. That's my favorite. That's my favorite violet or purple color that I've found that really looks great. That I think just whenever I use it, I've tried a lot of other different brands and things, but Winsor Newton ultramarine violet seems to be like the perfect violet color for me as far as tube paints go. But this one looks really great too. This Prang Oval 16 makes some beautiful colors. So there we have that. And now let's get into some of the earth tones. Maybe we'll go with a orange and brown over here. And yellow. So yellow, brown, orange. Nice earth tone there. Add some water into that. And then maybe some red. Let's go with some, what I would call an alizarin crimson red here, or a cadmium red too. We can mix a cadmium and alizarin crimson red there. And now you can see you have a wonderful mix of colors that you can use right there. You have that. And if you can imagine, you can have a really large sheet of paper, again, like a 24 by 30 inch watercolor sheet of paper, and that could be your first wash. Your light wash, if you're doing the beautiful glazing technique. So if you're doing the glazing technique, and you have your paper, and you're wanting to create a wonderful painting, you have your sheet of paper ready to go. And again, since it's maybe a larger painting, you're going to need larger brushes. Let's use a mop brush. So I'll use my Alvaro Kessenet mop brush, and this one is a number 4. And let's go in and get some sky colors. So you can get some sky colors on there. Like that, some sky color. And then maybe as we're working down into the painting, we'll put some earth tones. Like that. Maybe there's some buildings here. buildings, perhaps. This is maybe a street scene. And then maybe some grass down here. Or maybe some street type feel with the street feel there. Okay. Go. Okay, perfect. See, we got a wonderful light wash of colors onto the paper. We let this dry. We'll come back, and when we come back, we're gonna again re-look at how we're gonna use this palette to our advantage. Now we really kind of we can see that we can separate our colors so that they don't get all muddy and mixed up. You get them into a sectioned style palette like this. When your colors are all sectioned off and separate from one another, you can get them down onto your paper in the same fashion so that you won't have too much mixing and mingling of colors on, let's say, a palette that doesn't have sections to it. So a palette that has sections to it is really helpful. And this is why I mentioned this. This is really good, and they make smaller versions of this. You can find this like online, maybe on Amazon or Blix online. They have stuff like this, ceramic, palettes that you can put all your separate colors in there, keep them sectioned off from one another, and then you can put them onto your paper, and there's less chance of mixing some muddy looking colors. Okay, all right, so what we'll do is we'll let this dry, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of do a little more fine-tuning to this glazing technique painting we're doing here. We're just having fun pretending this is somewhat like a street scene. So we'll make a little bit of a building here and some sky. We already have the sky in, and there's a little bit of a street here. Maybe we'll make some figures and some buildings. We'll see what we can do with this, but definitely let's come back once this dries, though. We can't paint on this once we've created that initial wash of water on there for our first glazing. This is the glazing technique, and we're doing our first wash all the way across the paper with our fresh, clean colors. We don't want to disturb this by going in while it's wet. We have to let this dry 100%, so you can use a blow dryer at this point in time, or you can let it dry for a few hours. Either way is fine. I always use the blow dryer if I'm making videos, if I'm painting a painting for, like, let's say a customer or for a show or a gallery or something like that. I'll let it dry naturally because I think it does look a little better if it dries naturally, but no worries. And again, thank you so much for coming along here. We're going to get back started once this dries. And again, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe on the right-hand side below. I always mention that throughout my video. And also, too, in the description below, I have a book out. It's my new book. It's called Watercolor Methods for Success. It's a fantastic book. I'm really excited about it. It's my absolute best paintings that I've done over the last 5 years, and I put them all in this book. And my book, you can look, there's a video there, you can look at each page of the book. So you'll see every page of my book, what they look like, the pages, and I'm thinking it's a great book. It'll be great for you if you're doing watercolor and you want to kind of learn the real nuances and the nitty-gritty of it. You get my book, you'll see everything there. It's on Amazon. It's real simple to get. I have the link right below, too. So if you want to check out my book, please do. It's in the description below in this video, and I usually have it on all my videos, so just in case you want to peruse through that once in a while, maybe you're not going to buy it right away, but maybe you need to think about it or whatever, but that's fine. So be right back. We'll let this dry, and we'll start painting the rest of this painting here. All right, so I just used the blow dryer. I got this paper completely dry. I'm going to go back and grab the Prang Oval 16 set. Now at this point, I'm going to mix up some more brown here with a little bit of blue. So I'm going to mix a little bit of a grayish color there, brown and blue, a little bit of purple. And then what I'm going to do is I want to make this a little bit of a thicker. So this is where I might dry this up a little bit with a paper towel, just so I can get a little thicker paint there. That's all I want to do, is get a little bit of a thicker consistency to that paint. And what I'll do is I'm just going to make a little bit of some windows indoors in this building here. So I'm just going to do some windows here, like this, a couple of windows, and maybe there's a cornice up here like that, another cornice here, maybe there's a door here on the building over here, like that, and maybe there's a little bits of in detail to the windows at the top there, and maybe at the bottom too. Like that. And then maybe there's a little bit of a shadow over here on this building. So there's two different buildings here. Like that. And we're just going to have some fun. We'll put a line across here. Maybe there's another window over here. And another one there. And we're just having some fun. So a couple buildings, couple windows. Still a little bit lighter washes, nothing too dark. And then maybe we'll just have one figure. We'll just put a figure in. And this figure we'll try to make a little bit darker. Let's add a touch of black. So brown, touch of black, maybe a little bit of blue and red mixed in with that black, just to give it a little bit of kind of some good mixes of colors, so that it kind of looks a little bit, has some good color mix to it. Okay, there we go. And then we can do like a figure. So let's do a figure over here. Maybe there's a figure here. Put some shoulders there, some legs. And then we'll rinse off our brush. Maybe we'll make a little bit of flesh tone, which could be some orange and red, yellow. Orange, red, yellow. Makes a good flesh tone. Like that. So we have flesh tone there for the head. And then maybe we have a little bit of maybe a briefcase or a shopping bag. Like that. All right, so we just have a little bit of a figure here. And that could just be an idea of a streetscape where you start out with your really light washes first. Here, have everything sectioned off, have all your colors mixed first for your first glazing. Then as you come back in to your second glazing, and then you can start adding in some details. You can do some figure work. You can add in some darker shadowing under the windows if you want. And again, this is just a quick rendition of what you can do when you have a palette that can you can work with it and really utilize it to its fullest. So this is really large. You can get those really large washes all in there first, and then it takes you literally like 30 seconds to a minute to get your first wash or first glazing in. And then after that, then you're just working with a little bit of the more straight paint, not much water, and you mix your darker colors, and you kind of have your figures in there, whatever you want to do. You might have some more details. You might make a car. You might make a car over here. And you can make a car over here parked, possibly. A little bit of a shadow underneath it. A couple of lights on there. So you can come up with some interesting ideas, but this is just, again, having a little bit of fun. Here I'm going in with my darker darks, straight right out of the Prang Oval 16 palette. But you can kind of see, you can have a lot of fun with this, enjoy the process. But again, the most important thing was really kind of trying to utilize the different palettes that are out there. I've just shown you a few that I have. These are most of what I have. There's another one I have over here too. I kind of went around my studio and tried to find the palettes that I have. You know, so you have, you know, I have this one here too. This one's pretty nice. You know, maybe for a flower painting, you can have a bunch of really nice flower colors in this one here. So you can take your Prang Oval 16 and get out some colors into this one. And then maybe you get some greens for the... So that could make a really beautiful flower painting where you have some of your greens. You can kind of mix your greens up. Green, there's a little bit of yellow here. I'm using some of that lemony yellow there. Some of the greens in the center here. Then these might be some of the petals of the flowers. So you can mix up some of your alizarin crimson looking color. This looks like a violet. This is like a purple here. So you can have a couple different purples there. So you can get some great colors for some flowers and things like that with a palette like this too. Get all your colors out there and then you're ready to go. You can start another painting. Let's do that. Let's do a quick flower painting, just a real fun little rendition of something. Let's come right back in a second or two and we'll put another piece of fresh watercolor paper down and we'll just do a quick, you know, fun flower type style painting and see how that looks with this palette. All right, so now we're going to finish up here. We're going to just do a fun, interesting exercise and maybe doing a little bit of a flower type painting. I would say maybe I'll start out with this here. A little bit of the, maybe a little bit of a grayish mix here. Maybe I'll do a vase here like that. That's okay. We'll do a vase here like this. Like that. And we'll say the light's coming from over here, going this way. So we'll put a little bit of a shadow here. It's nice to use a little bit of our purple for some shadowing. Like that. And let's see if we can... Let's do a couple leaf forms here. Sometimes you can do a little bit of tapping with your finger to get some texture. So what I'm going to do is get some greens in there for some leaf forms. Maybe a couple of stems. Like that. And then we'll go in and we'll get some beautiful... I'm going to do a little bit of splashing. Do a couple flower shapes here, like that. Maybe we'll do a little bit of purple flowers here. that. Maybe a little bit of that lavender kind of color. Splash a little bit of that lavender color there. Maybe a little bit of that. There we go. That looks pretty good. And some more greens up here. All right, so you can kind of see how you can have some fun doing some flower colors and do some flower compositions with these colors and these palettes. This palette's great for sectioning off all your colors so that you have everything you can imagine at your fingertips. Just get a little more of the greens there. Maybe a little more yellow. Like that. Then we might make a little bit of a background color here. We'll take all of our colors and mix them all up, make a grayish color here. And we'll maybe make a table back here. Like that. Just a couple of splashes of color back here. And just a little bit of color back here. And then you can add a little more color if you want. Purple, brown, blue, red, orange. Just kind of get a grayish color. And that just might give us a good feeling of the table there. Some more of the shadow color there. Okay, and that's perfect. We have a little fun flower composition here. And I think this is, again, a really fun way to sort of try out some new palettes. If you haven't tried some new palettes, you know, in the recent days, maybe it's a fun time to try a couple new palettes. Again, I usually keep an eye out for anything. I go to the Five and Dimes once in a while and over into the red, white, and blue stores where they have all the used clothing and used like pottery and all that kind of stuff. I try to find vases and things like that, like for some still life paintings that we do sometimes. So I'm always on the lookout for good stuff. And so I have found a number of palettes, you know, just in like a store that maybe sells like used secondhand stuff. So, and then there's also great stuff online too on Amazon. I try to be a little bit thrifty and see if I can find, you know, stuff like that at thrift stores and things. But you know, you do what you have to do. But again, there's lots of great stuff out there, lots of palettes. There's videos on palettes. I have other, again, videos I've created on YouTube. You can just look up Chris Petri, palette. You type in the word my name, Chris Petri, and then palette, and you'll see that I have probably about a dozen videos on palettes. So I cover each one that I use on a regular basis on YouTube, and then I cover other odds and ends that I might have. And now this video too, again, just a way to share how you can maybe do a little bit more planning ahead with your colors and your washes to make your paintings a little bit more exciting. Maybe you can keep your colors a little more clean looking versus having a muddy colors. And I definitely know that it's many watercolor artists, including myself. I sometimes forget to keep my palette, you know, in check, and I sometimes get some of them muddy looking colors that don't always look the greatest. So it's everything, you know, as artists, we all struggle with that as watercolor artists. Sometimes our palettes get a little bit muddy and colors get mixed up and so forth, but these are great palettes to section off your colors. This one and this one here, both fantastic. This palette is great too, the Oval Prang 16 set. You have sections here to keep things pretty good. And then you have other ones like this too you can pick up online, or you might be able to find on eBay, something like that. That's, you know, and then we went over some other palettes that we had in the beginning. We had the Anderson palette, that metal palette we used in the very beginning. And also we did the John Pike palette, which was a fantastic palette. So we have a whole bunch of palettes covered on this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section if you like more videos like this where we cover more like the, art supplies that we might use as watercolor artists. Sometimes I don't do enough of these probably videos that you would like to see. So let me know if you like this a lot. Thumbs it up. I'll do more like this. Have a great time painting, everyone. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the watercolor journey. We'll see you soon.